Some of the grasses that you can see behind me just here are giant rat's tail. So giant rat's tail is considered an invasive weed species. And the interesting part about invasive weed species is that, in my view, weeds are the name given to a plant. And that plant is doing its best to do a job that we potentially haven't otherwise managed to do yet. So one of the ways that we manage the giant rat's tail is through aggressive grazing. So when we rotationally graze the animals, we will try and put them through areas of high giant rat's tail populations to the tune of about 3,000 kilograms per hectare equivalent of animals. So we put a lot of animals in a very tight space for a very short period of time and then move them on. And what we've noticed is that we now have other plants looking to come through. So we've got roads, grasses beginning to mix in with the giant rat's tail population that we have here. And the more species of plants that we have in any one paddock, the happier we and the animals that are grazing them will be. We've got a lot of vines through there that are doing a great job fixing up the nitrogen profile in the soil. So our observation is that giant rat's tail also doesn't love super wet and moist soils. So giant rat's tail will move into an environment when that environment requires it to have lots of soil stabilisation. I don't know if you've ever tried to dig the root system out of a plant that is called giant rat's tail, but you'll be there for a very, very long time, and hats off to you if you can actually manage to get it out of the ground. So when a plant has a very thick root system, then that job of that plant is often to hold the soil together. So the soil has degraded to such a point where that plant needs to go into that landscape and try and bind and hold everything together. So the GRT, as we like to call it here, has done a fantastic job of that in this farm, and slowly but surely we're seeing that plant begin to move out from a succession standpoint, with other things starting to move in. Now the heads of the giant rat's tail and associated species are actually really quite palatable by the cattle. They love eating them. They're often the thing that I notice that they will eat when they first come into a new paddock is all of the seed heads. So there's probably a seed bank here of maybe 100 million billion seeds, because they've been here for a long time, and each of these heads has thousands and thousands of seeds on it, and there will be there's probably millions and millions of seed heads in this paddock. So those seeds have all gone down into the soil, and what we're noticing is that if those seeds were in an environment that was conducive for them to sprout and grow, then they would be. But what we're noticing is that those plants actually aren't returning. So Mother Nature has decided that there are better things to be putting in the place of the giant rat's tail, because the succession of that soil is finally beginning to climb. So hopefully those plants that are coming in are going to be as palatable for the cattle as the GRT has been for us. But what happens with the GRT is it gets quite ligneous as it gets a bit older. But one thing that we have learnt is, contrary to what I've done here, which is actually mow and level a lot of the giant rat's tail, as soon as that goes onto the ground, what we notice is that it blocks out a lot of the sunlight for a lot of the other plants to grow. And so then when that sunlight is blocked out, it actually creates bare patches on the soil. So we have learnt over time, the hard way, through a little bit of trial and error, that leveling giant rat's tail actually isn't in the best interests of the land or the animals or the plant. It's in the great interest of the plant, because that plant lays down all of the thick and fibrous material and takes a really long time to break down. So it actually creates an environment that is very helpful for more GRT to grow. So what we found is that by leaving it standing up and letting the cattle manage that plant for us, that we're having much greater success in the succession of that plant.